Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for your time, and I'm sure you're taking some time to rest as well while it's very busy. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, is it possible to have an international school that has the best qualities of the school that it's coming from, or the country it's coming from, and maintain all the things that are important about an Egyptian curriculum for an Egyptian student. I was a teacher myself for 10 years. I was a deputy principal in a school, and I've worked now in education, advisory and consultancy in many countries around the world. And in Egypt, I'm combining my work here with Seeds British School with being the project director for a government schools project called Teachers First as well. So Egypt is very much my second home, definitely my second home. So the question is, can we have the best of both worlds? It might seem an odd thing to ask, and many people assume that international education is all about, that's everything to do with the country that it's associated with, be it a British school, an American school, a German school, and so on. But I think it's a wrong thing to assume that when a student walks into the school gates of an international school, that they step into another country. It shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be that they walk from an Egyptian environment into a British or American environment in school. There should be an identity that's maintained that is Egyptian within that school, but using the best things from it. I even met a family recently, I'm sorry to say, in which there was a student who was at an American school, and their child, they did not want to speak Arabic at home. They wanted to speak English only. And for me, that's going too far. That's internationalizing that child's education too much. So an international school should embrace all the things that's good from the international elements, such as the standards. And by standards, I mean that they meet at least the same standards as the country in which the school are coming from. That doesn't mean that they say they're an international school, they say they're a British school, but actually the school standards, the standards of teaching, the standards of curriculum, the standard of materials, is just in that language. It has to at least meet the standards from that country. In curriculum, there has to be from the country it's from. So a British school must have a British-based curriculum with British materials, but still adapt that to meet the needs of Egyptian students and Egyptian children. And I don't just mean the regulation and the legal requirements, but making sure that all the context of what the students are learning is all about Egypt. There is little point in a student learning a grade 2 or grade 3 mathematics problem and talking about the number of trees on a mountain in Switzerland. That doesn't apply to those children. We should be actually applying examples that are relevant to the students in Egypt and using examples of their experience. So teaching standards, teaching techniques, pedagogies and methods have to be of a consistently high standard. And for examinations and assessment, you want them to be from that donor country, if it's a British school, from the British country, but not only in terms of maintaining that your children leave that school with the right standard of education from a British school that have got British qualifications, but also that those qualifications and those assessments are meaningful to the children as an individual. Assessment needs to be formative, and by that I mean it has to be informing the teachers about what they're going to teach next. Because if you just have assessments and exams that measure a level and a quality in one place, at one place in time, but don't give feedback to the teachers about what their students know, what they don't know, what they need to learn, then it's of very, very little value. So assessment has to be based on what do the children need and what's important to their learning. And in terms of links, the links between the British or the international school and the Egyptian school have to be very, very strong. And I'll talk about that a little bit in a moment. So it's really important that the school maintains an Egyptian identity. You're using the best of education from another country, but the identity has still got to be very, very Egyptian. It's got to be about what's right for the students in their own country. You shouldn't getting your children to step out of their country when they're in the school, but they should be working alongside their country. It's a big, big difference that they're learning the experience in another country when they're in Egypt, not going to a different place. A child should leave school at the end of the day knowing, feeling and believing themselves to be Egyptian and not have a superior attitude towards it. And so all of the aims of what they're working on, and that children, should be about not only themselves, but what's right for the country as well. So the ethos should be about what's right for Egypt, its aims, its aspirations, and not so the children live in a bubble where they're taken away from their Egyptian identity. So I think there's three really important things we've got to consider about an international school. The top three, there are many others, but this is the most important thing. First of all, there has to be meaningful partnerships. For a school to call itself a British school or American school or whatever it might be, they have to have a meaningful partnership with another school from that country. Because how can you possibly expect to introduce and manage and run a school which calls itself British or American or German or French unless they're having direct relationship and link with a school in that country? So a meaningful partnership was really, really important. But the important word is partnership. It's about partnering and have both parties, both the school in Egypt and the school in the other country, working together and getting the right thing out of it. It's not about a school from another country coming and importing what they're doing and running everything. So partnership's really important. Having targets, ensuring the aims of the school are clear to everybody, to parents, to children, to teachers, to everyone. The last thing parents, you need as parents, is uncertainty over what's going to happen. So partnerships have to be over a long period of time, at least 3 years, ideally 5 or 10 years. So you know the quality is going to be maintained and the partnership between the school from another country and the Egyptian one is going to stay. Lastly, there has to be long-term involvement from everybody. I visited a school last week which closed 1 year ago, and it closed literally overnight because the owner, who's not Egyptian, from another country, fell out with the people in Cairo and said, "We are going to close the school." It was like a ghost school, there was nobody there. But what about those children? The children went to school on a Thursday. On Sunday, the parents had to find another school for them. So knowing that there's stability and that there's long-term involvement both from the Egyptian school and the school from another country is really, really important. There has to be that security and knowing that the children, the students, the community are involved in that. If you take all those three things into account, that equals the best chance of success for the students, for the school. I always ask a couple of questions when anything happens in education. So what and what if? So what if a school has lots of fantastic facilities, if it has lots of fantastic technology? Many schools advertise their facilities, quite rightly, but they just advertise their facilities. They don't actually talk about the quality of teaching, the quality of learning. My advice is to look beyond that, and if I was a parent looking for a school for my child, I would be saying, if I said to the school principal, what's the most important thing the school has? If they come back to me and the first thing they say it's the facilities, it's the equipment, then I would walk away. I wouldn't consider that school. If they answer things like happy children and high quality education, then yes, continue the conversation. But it mustn't be focused. If you just on equipment and technology, if you visit a school or see schools here and they've got lots of wonderful things they say they have, but they don't talk about happy children, individual learning, the right curriculum for the right students, what's the point in having fantastic equipment if it's not about the children, if it's just about showing off what they've got to attract you to go there? So that's why I think you asking so what when you visit the schools here is very, very important. I also think it's important to think about what if. What is the potential of every child? What can the school do to bring out the best of every child, to allow them to create the best learning environment for them, and they can achieve their own standards and achieve the best they possibly can? So thinking differently, thinking not just about having children in the classroom that we talk to, but trying out new things, trying new methods. So Seeds British School, which I'm working with here in Cairo, which have their booth just over in the corner over here, their philosophy is based on 4 things. Working with a British school as partners who will maintain the standards and curriculum and materials of Seeds British School, having at the core of it though Egyptian values and culture, making sure the learning is child-centred and a culture based on the 6 C's. What do I mean by the 6 C's? Well, here we are. The 6 C's are, as you can see on the screen here. So Michael Fullan, who wrote this, is a very big, I wouldn't take credit for this at all, I'm not that clever, he's a very, very good education philosopher and thinker. If you look at this, can you see anywhere where it says results, exams or competition? Nowhere on there does it talk about exam results or success or competing with other people. Because actually for the student well-being and for the best for what's right for society, you need to have a good education that talks about character, about creating the right character for people, about citizenship, being part of the Egyptian society, good communication skills with each other and with their parents and with people outside school, being able to think critically, being able to think differently, critical thinking, learning how to collaborate, and also being creative and thinking new ways of thinking. If you've got those, if you can work on those and your students are able to use those 6 C's, then what you find is that examination success and assessments and future prospects are increased massively. Don't think about results, think about the atmosphere and the ethos and the feelings and the thoughts and the feel of a school. And think about these 6 C's, that's really important. If these are developed, then that's the best thing to look for in a new school. I worked with some teachers in Asia, and I asked their students, I said, write me the words that tell me what a teacher should be. And these are the words that they came up with. As this Wordle, the bigger the word, the more important it was, the more students said it. And what do students say? They want teachers to be engaging, inspiring, collaborative, organised, clear and passionate. And that's what we're going to work with the teachers, working with the school in the UK to build those with the teachers are going to be part of Seeds British School. So that's really important, the teachers are those things. So what are the plans for Seeds British School? It's opening in September 2017. And entry will be for pre-KG, KG, and then through to years 1 to 4. At the moment, we are negotiating with a very prestigious private British school. We can't tell you who it is because we're in the final negotiation stage, but that will be happening, and we'll be able to announce that next month. So if you want your child to go to school that has the best of both education that's Egyptian and education that is British, and not just saying it's British, but actually working with a very prestigious UK school which will give the standards and the curriculum and the exchanges and the materials that are very much of a very, very high standard, then Seeds British School is the people to talk to. If you want to know more, then please, I'm here all day, I'll be around, and the Seeds British School booth is just over in the corner over there. Please express an interest, and we'd love to talk to you. I'd love to talk to you more about the future of education that's truly international, not just a school that is imported. A school that is both Egyptian and international is what's really, really important. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them for you down here. Thank you. Thank you.